Are you selling music as a label or an artist? Or are you a music fan looking to buy from your favorite artists and labels direct? If you're any of those things, then you will be interested in the sponsor of Music Not Diving, Acid Nation. It is a direct-to-consumer platform formerly known as AC55ID.com, and they are providing a really great service in this area that we use for Hot Fresh Recordings and all of our affiliated labels. What is the difference between Acid Nation and other D2C platforms? Well, they have an array of additional services. For example, a pressing plant that they can call upon to fulfill your vinyl orders on demand, free storage for all your stock, and a streaming service built in that pays out 1 cent per stream. This is, like I said, a great service that we use. I would highly recommend them personally. And of course, the other great thing about them is they're supporting your favorite music podcast, which is, of course, this one, right? Head over to acidnation.com to check them out.
My kind of bucket list of goals was so small. It was like, my dream is to hear a track in a club that I've produced. It wasn't like, I want to be the world's biggest DJ.
I just want to hear something played out.
And then once that happened, then it's like, I want to have something on vinyl, because that was the only way to release stuff back then. So something on vinyl, and then, I never really, in terms of career, I never had either confidence or aspirations to be, even what I am today. It was like, my dream was to work at a record label. That's what I wanted to do. Just not own the label, just be a member of staff.
Just be involved in the scene.
Just to be part of it.
This is Music Not Diving with Scuba.
Welcome to the show. I'm Scuba. This is Music Not Diving. Okay, we're back in the world of techno this week, UK techno in particular, and we're talking to Perc, one of the most important people in the history of the genre, particularly in the UK, I think around the world too, but generally speaking, he's defined UK techno in many ways over the last 20 or so years. And he's an interesting guy with a lot to say on the matter too. So just a great person really to have on, a lot of experience to draw upon. And like I said, a lot of things to say about the way the genre is today. Just before we get into it, a reminder to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you've got anything to say about this episode, then leave it in the comments below. So without further delay, let's jet over to the studio and check out my conversation with Perc.
Brought to you by acidnation.com.
Perc, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hi there. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, really good.
Good. Okay, so I had on my list of things to talk about was your supposed playing of a new live set in France this weekend, but apparently it didn't happen. We were talking about off camera. Tell me what happened.
So it was meant to be Saturday at Astropolis in Brest. A rather large storm was predicted. It was an outdoor event, in the grounds of an old French fort.
Yeah, Astropolis, amazing festival.
Right? So the storm was predicted. They moved it to a club, rejiggled the lineup, moved me to their festival in July, and then the storm didn't come. So it's just the way it goes, but it just gives me a bit more time to prepare, and there's a lot of other live sets coming up. So and it's good. It still forced me to get ready and practice. So it was kind of, in some ways, it was good.
So I mean, this is a return to playing live a bit, right? I hadn't done it for a while.
I think my last time was like 18 months ago. I try and do live sets, and kind of, you prepare a live set, practice it, do as many as you can, 3, 4, 5 gigs, and then it kind of drops off, and then you sort of rebuild it again next year. So how are you doing it in this iteration? It's fairly similar to my DJ set in terms of equipment. It's the laptop running Ableton, MacBook. It's 2 Allen Heath K2s, so it's 8 channels on the controllers, 8 channels on the screen for Ableton. Depending on the gig, I will take whatever I want with me on top of that. So normally at least 1 drum machine. So like a Roland TI-S or the Electron Analog Rhythm. And then normally something hands-on just to make a sort of drone noise, like a synth, something like that, a small like tabletop synth.
Right, okay.
So it's just that, and it's kind of working through loops and stems of existing tracks, new ideas. Sort of, so the more well-known tracks I kind of remixed, so it gives something fresh for people, and then there's like unreleased stuff in there as well. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, techno DJing has sort of become, a certain type of techno DJing anyway, has sort of like gradually, I suppose, become more what people might imagine to be a techno live set. I mean, what are your general observations about how techno, the DJing side of it, has developed over time?
I think it's, I don't know if it's by the work of Pioneer, whatever, but the sort of this Pioneer CDJ setup is now so standardized. Years ago, you had people using different setups, a lot more people using laptops, hybrid setups, things like that. And now I don't know, yeah, maybe it's the power of Pioneer, but it's become very standardized.
Sure. Yeah.
3 or 4 synced decks, Pioneer mixer, and that's it. I think, yeah, in terms of techno DJ, I think with the current hard techno thing, I don't think that gives so much space for sort of cutting up, blending. It's a lot of kind of drop mixing,
Right.
just starting something on the,
We're
as
gonna
the
talk
track
about
comes
hard
out, the
techno,
breakdown. But yeah, you know what I mean? It's a different style. Different styles of music, different BPMs require a different type of mixing.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I don't see in the kind of the sort of the side of techno I really love. I don't see so much outstanding DJing. I think it's easier to get from A to B in terms of mixing.
Yeah.
But you don't see so many real kind of virtuoso things, and of course that's a good thing. Sometimes people are just cutting and scratching and chopping up tracks pointlessly, and it kind of really takes the energy away from the dance floor. But I think a lot of people are playing it fairly safe with how they mix these days.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's, yeah. I mean, virtuosity, like, there always has to be a point to it. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, as you were saying, it's almost like, you know, shredding on guitar, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, absolutely, like, there's a kind of space, I think, for a sprinkling of that kind of thing. But when it becomes the kind of be all and end all, like, no one wants to watch that, do they, really?
Yeah, if every track is kind of chopped into the mix, and then every track comes out the mix with a spin back, it just gets tiresome, you know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you also had another woeful experience this weekend, I believe.
Yeah, so it wasn't my greatest weekend of gigging ever. I had nothing Friday. Saturday was the Astropolis, France, Storm, cancelled live set. And Sunday, I was meant to be playing at Synoid, which it's normally at RSO, which a lot of people love. This time it was at, I think it's called Distract or District, because it has no vowels in it.
Yeah, right.
So I don't actually know how it's pronounced, because they've removed all the vowels, which used to be Anomaly in Berlin. And yeah, I flew from London to Berlin on Sunday morning. And then, by the time I landed, the event was still happening, but my set was cancelled. A lot of kind of, let's say, bad feeling around the event at the moment, and how it worked out, from the smaller DJs to the bigger DJs to even people associated with the club and the bar staff and whatever. So I don't know what's happening about that, but I didn't play.
Okay.
And it was a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, right. I mean, I was in Berlin this weekend as well. I played at Sisyphus.
Yeah.
And went to Berghain afterwards for the first time in 6 years, which is the reason why I'm slightly droopy-eyed this morning. But when was the last time you were at Berghain? As a DJ or
no, I'm one of those people. I've never lived in Berlin, so I've never been to Berghain apart from when I played there.
Right, yeah.
So my last time, I would guess, was 2019. I used to always, I had an alarm clock. I'd always get booked every summer, like August, September-ish, once a year. The last time was the middle of 2019. Then the pandemic hit. The booker changed, I think, multiple times now. Yeah. And I haven't been back there since.
I mean, it's been a bit of a changing of the guard. I mean, this is true for, techno generally, and music generally, and and also, I mean, I think it's kind of healthy, I think, to have a sort of like a churn or whatever. So like, I'm the same. I haven't played there since.
I never expect to play somewhere. There's places I've played at like once a year for 10 years or so, but I don't expect these relationships to go on forever, because the club has to stay fresh.
Yeah, but so you played Tresor as well, right?
Tresor is generally, I'd say, twice a year.
Yeah.
Tresor
is well, actually, we've got someone from Tresor coming up on the podcast,
cool.
actually. But I mean, I said to him in that interview, which I think is going to be going out after this, so I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Yeah.
But that's the most important club in the history of techno, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's like when I was younger, I was only buying CDs before I had my first vinyl decks. And it was the Tresor compilations that helped me kind of graduate from Orbital, Underworld, Prodigy to, let's say, serious techno. Those early Tresor compilations, Basic Channel, DJ Hell, Jeff Mills, that kind of stuff, Robert Hood, of course. So that was the first that was my sort of entrance point into like what you want, proper techno, underground techno at Detroit as well. Yeah. Rather than just a sort of major label, big dance acts.
When was the first time you played there?
I don't know, but at least 10 to 15 years ago. Yeah. And to walk down that tunnel into the main room of Tresor.
Actually,
it's
let
amazing.
me stop you. Could you just for someone who hasn't been into Tresor, just to describe it as the whole thing?
So the current Tresor is what, the second or third?
I think
iteration of the place.
At least the second.
Yeah, so it's in a kind of courtyard. So from the street, you go through a sort of open gate. There's this large courtyard which people, there's a queues running through that. So obviously if you're playing, you go at the front of the queue, they let you in, and there's a kind of on the ground floor, there's just a quick entrance, and then you go down at least 1 or 2 sets of steps, maybe like 20 steps in total. And there's a long, I guess it's brick tunnel, underground tunnel, with some sort of moody red lighting. And then that gets you into the sort of back of the Tresor dance floor. And then you walk through the club, you go past a bar. And then at the back of the room, in relation to the entrance, is the DJ booth, which is just this kind of heavy metal kind of cage.
How many people can you get on the main floor, would you say? I'm just trying to work
I'm not sure, 500 or 600.
Yeah, it's not huge, is it?
Yeah, I've seen, and it's so dark in there. It's one of the most.
I think it really is.
It's one of the most intimidating sort of environments for clubbing. So it's pretty much pitch black. There's a few red lights dotted around, and to show you the exit and the bar, and then they pump it full of thick smoke. So yeah, it's literally the opposite of an Instagrammable LED screen kind of festival stage, and I love that for it. It's impossible to get any kind of content down there, which is perfect. I don't think they have like a no phones policy.
Right.
It's just there's no point. You can, and some people do that thing where they take like a little audio recording because it's pitch black on their phone. But that's it. It's uncontentable, if that's a word. Right. Yeah.
Have you ever played in the Globus room?
No, I haven't. I've been up there a few times, and they renovated it a year or 2 ago, and it's cool. It was always it's meant to be a contrast to Tresor, so it is quite bright. At one point, it was quite sort of chrome, and the Globus thing is this kind of, I don't know what you call it, ball where those kind of energy balls with the lightning inside them, and you touch it, and the lightning kind of goes towards your fingers. So it's a totally different vibe. I've been up there and heard some sets, but I've never played up there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to go back and see it because, like you say, they've renovated it not that long ago. And the sound, particularly up there, is supposed to be awesome now, actually.
Yeah, and I think it's a system that's tweaked a bit more towards house or sort of slightly deeper things.
Yeah. No, it was funny being back at Berghain, actually, because it's so the same. And I was like trying to, contrast it to the first time I went there, which is just after I moved to Berlin in 2007. I remember walking in, it was when Minimal was still big. I've told this story on the show before, but I remember walking in there, and it was a Friday, so the Berghain room wasn't open, it was just panorama bar. And the only difference really is that the decks were closer to the wall. They moved them forward at one point. And they had them like hanging off the ceiling. That's really the only difference. And the sound was notably worse than it is now, to be fair.
Yeah.
But actually, it was when Minimal was big. My abiding memory of it was like standing by the bar, watching basically like a DJ play a record with essentially nothing happening in it, and this little hi-hat starting, and that place just erupting, and this little clicky hi-hat starting. Amazing. But apart from the music, it's remarkable how similar it is.
Yeah, but it's good. It's such an institution that I think for it to stay as a constant in such a rapidly changing kind of club scene, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of reassuring, that it's there.
And also, they don't need to change it.
Well,
exactly. It works. It works.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, the door policy is a big part of that. And the guys on the door were different to the last time I went there, obviously. Yeah. But the attitude is exactly the same.
Yeah, trained up. Yeah.
I mean, it's actually crazy how rude they are. But I mean, I guess that's part of the charm. Right?
Yeah, people take it. But as I said, I've never queued. To queue for 4 hours in the rain or something and be denied.
It's mad.
Would just too much.
What was incredible is that there was a little queue for the guest list.
Yeah.
But you're looking at the main queue, and it was deathly quiet. It was like literally like being in church. People are just like, obviously the closer you get to the front of the queue, the quieter people are, right? And then probably 80% of people are just getting turned away. Just like Jesus Christ. What's your view on door policies generally speaking in clubs?
It's mixed feelings, I guess, because half of me wants to think if you get there before there's still capacity in the club, or you buy a ticket in advance. I know you can't do that at some places, but you should be allowed in. But then we've all played enough clubs that have had a high kind of quota. So it's I know it's hard. It's really hard, and especially when the door policy is sort of kind of hidden. There's no, you can't go on the Berghain site and read the door policy.
Yeah, right.
And then that would sort of,
Yeah,
you can decide whether to go or how to behave or whatever.
It's intentionally opaque, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess for something like Berghain that has such an international reputation, it has to be like that. They don't want to just let the first few thousand people in because you're going to get all sorts of people in. Yeah. And it's generally protected the mystique of the place, its reputation. There's not people secretly filming in there and things. So yeah, I guess it works, but it must be highly frustrating, especially people that fly. You know, you come from the States or something and you base your trip around a weekend in Berlin and you don't get to Berghain.
I mean, when we were doing our party there many years ago now, we would have lots of people fly from the UK.
Yeah, of
and
course,
there were certain nights. There was one in particular where they were literally letting no English people in. It was just like, come on, guys, you know what this party is. You know these people are here specifically for this. Like, they're not just some idiots who turned up, to go into Berghain. These people have come here specifically for this party. It's like, no.
Is it just a yes or no? They don't ask you questions like, do you know who's playing or name one of the DJs?
Sometimes they. Because I've queued a couple of times. I mean, not for back before I started playing there. And I got turned away the first time I tried to get in, actually. And actually, this is amazing. The guy who turned me away, the guy who was on the door who turned me away the very first time, was the cashier this time. And we've obviously know each other quite well now. But there's still that kind of thing. Like, he's just like, you're it's you. But I mean, it's I can't remember what I was saying when I went down that path. But it's a remarkable place for sure.
I should really go back.
Yeah,
whether I'm playing or just partying.
100%, 100%. And actually, people watching this may have noticed. It may have been written up in the press by now that Drake was at. This was the night that Drake was at. So it was very strange seeing Drake on the dance floor at Panorama.
But was he getting like attention or hassled, or was it
not
pretty
really?
Chill?
No, he was kind of. So he was with apparently Gordo, who I didn't recognise, obviously, because I mean
it's not your thing.
Gordo, but he had like a couple of guys with him, but wasn't like they weren't like drawing attention to themselves really. Obviously a few people had clocked who he was and were like, because I mean I was trying to like quantify this in my head, because I've seen famous people in there before. Like my previous record in Berghain was Michael Stipe. That was a cool kind of like little like what the moment. But Drake he's genuinely one of the most famous people in the world. I would say. Of
course,
And it's so weird in that, because it's like quite dark, quite, surreal in there anyway. And then you just turn around and see one of the most famous people in the world. Just bizarre. Episode.
Yeah, he was the highest streaming artist ever.
Yeah.
Maybe not now, but at one point,
I mean, he even survives the Kendrick beef just about.
He's escaped to Berlin.
Yeah.
Okay, you are 15 minutes into this episode or so well done for sticking around this long. I'm just going to take this opportunity to remind you that you can support the show directly on Patreon, patreon.com/scubaofficial. There are 2 very reasonably priced tiers there, both of which get you my bonus podcast that I do every 2 weeks, and the more expensive of which gets you all of the music that we release on Hot Flush and affiliated labels. It's pretty great, right? If you don't want to do that, completely understand. Subscribe to the channel, and if you've got anything to say at all, leave it in the comments below. Okay, let's get back to the episode, shall we?
Let's go back to the start. Where are you from originally?
Originally from I was born in Peterborough, but moved out of there when I was very young and spent most of my youth in a very small village in Hertfordshire.
Oh, really?
Like 100 people.
Okay.
Tiny. Yeah.
Okay.
So country boy. I wasn't brought up on a farm, but I lived next. Like most of the only industry in the village was farming.
Right.
Primary school that had like 20 pupils soon shut down after I left there. Yeah, one pub, one tiny shop.
Yeah, right.
Just tiny. Nearest town was only sort of 15-minute drive away, but as a kid, that's miles,
Right. So what was your early experiences in music?
Usual thing, I listened to stuff on the radio. This would have been sort of mid-80s onwards. So a lot of pop music, a lot of Radio 1, a lot of Capital FM, these kind of things. Then my brother, I have one brother, he's about 3 years older than me. He started picking up on he's too young for the kind of 88 acid house thing,
right.
but the kind of early 90s, 92, the kind of more like rave, hardcore stuff like that. So he started buying that, going to those events, going to...
So he had like tape packs and stuff? Or
yeah, tape packs. He wasn't really a vinyl. He had some vinyl, but it's mainly CDs.
Right.
A lot of like XL, Production House, Shut Up and Dance, all that kind of stuff. And some sort of US house and Inner City and things like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he had all that. He would go up to the centre of town to like round Oxford Circus every Saturday, buy tickets for parties, buy the clothes. The appropriate, and all sort of ludicrous rave fashion. The stuff that was kind of floating around at the time.
Right.
And then I was too young to really appreciate it. At first, I hated the music because it was so alien.
I was going to ask.
And of course, it's a brother thing where if he likes it, I hate it.
Okay. Well, sometimes it works the other way around with older brothers, but And
then it suddenly clicked with me independently, like Alternate, The Prodigy, stuff like that was starting to get, Radio 1 airplay. That was getting played at school because we had like radios at different parts of school. And it's like, it just clicked with me that I like that stuff. And I was, the last music I was really listening to before I got into that stuff with either like heavy metal or hip hop, like sort of Public Enemy, Run DMC type hip hop. So the kind of drums, the big drums and the kind of energy. If you listen to like obviously The Prodigy and listen to Public Enemy, there's a little bit of crossover there for sure. So that kind of stuck me into it. And then when I went to university when I was 18, I realised there was more to the world than just the major label big British dance acts that were everywhere. And then
where were you at uni?
I first went to Newcastle.
Okay.
And I graduated there and started working in a studio as a kind of tape op and hated it.
Oh, right. Hang on a second. So what did you study that led you to being a tape op?
At Newcastle, I studied just music production. So it was a mixture of...
Okay, well, hang on a second. Why did you study music production? Like, what music had you been doing...
At home.
Yeah, that led you to...
So I've been in bands since a ridiculous age, like 12, 13.
Yeah, playing...
playing bass and singing, mainly singing, but I was terrible.
Okay.
Right, songwriting, doing a small sort of gigs, pub gigs, things like that in the local area. And never getting anywhere, recording cassettes, sending them off to NME, Melody Maker.
Yeah, right.
Getting blanked.
So what kind of thing?
That was kind of sort of quite thrashy...
Okay, so metal.
Yeah, like grunge was big at the time.
Yeah.
Sort of 92, 91, I'm not sure when. So yeah, like Nirvana without the sort of songwriting chops, obviously. Mudhoney, things like that.
Yeah, right.
Just like thrashing away.
Actually, a distant cousin of mine was actually a member of Mudhoney, I have to say. Which is...
That's cool.
I know.
Yeah.
That's
a good thing. Yeah, Mudhoney are amazing.
Right. Yeah.
They're still going.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, but you were, okay. What I always find interesting is the extent to which kids who are in bands get interested in the making of records. Because that's just essentially what happened to me. I was in bands too. Yeah. That kind of thing. And the first kind of couple of days we did going in to record a demo where you go, you pay a couple $100 or whatever it was, some laughably small amount of money. In the context of today, and you get given an engineer and they have to, unfortunately for them, sit and record your band for a day. But I mean, as the first time we did that, I just immediately caught my imagination. I was just like, shit, okay, this is the fun stuff. I mean, did you have a similar...
We never went to a studio. We never got our act together, never got the money. We did have access to like a 4-track Tascam Porter studio.
Sure.
So we were using like... drums from a drum machine. Even though we had a drummer, we had no real way of recording it.
Yeah.
And then guitar, bass, vocals, some keyboard, kind of pads, chords, whatever. Yeah. So we did that, and it was fun to learn a bit about recording, but we never really got anywhere. And then when I was 16, I got my GCSE results, which were terrible.
Okay.
Like awful. Okay. And they're not the hardest exams in the world to do. You should do fairly well at the GCSEs, even if you don't do well further on. And I bought myself my own drum machine, which was a Roland TR-626, not the most glamorous of the TRs, but it was all right. And then that was when I was listening to a lot of Alternate and The Prodigy. So I was like, these little sort of drum machine rhythms, keyboards, home keyboards, running things through distortion pedals that I had from the band. Yeah. So it was a much more sort of grotty, distorted sound. It's pretty hard to make rave music back then without a sampler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
basically impossible. I mean, that was basically the ball game with that music, right? It's like an S950 and,
But there's no way. Even in second hand, like even in second
Yeah, because
hand.
they were quite
Akai.
expensive, weren't they? Like S950s, like and even like cheaper ones. I mean, the first one I had was a EMU ESI 4000. This is a few years later.
Yeah.
And they were not. I mean, they weren't nowhere near as expensive as an Akai, but still,
Yeah,
it
there's
was,
no way.
it was an investment.
Yeah, I was working a few nights a week washing up in a restaurant. What was that, £3-4 an hour?
Yeah, right.
So how many shifts are you going to do
Right.
to buy like an S1000?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. First job I had was like $3.15 an hour, but working behind a bar. I mean, that's just fun. That is slave wages, literally.
Yeah. So I used to go to the local music shops in Cambridge, see what they had second hand, and then beg them like, I can't afford this now. Can I put down a down payment? Can you sit on it for a few months? And then eventually that's how I got the TR626 and like an old Cheetah module that was terrible. Some like cheap Yamaha stuff, but just whatever I could afford.
Okay.
Really bad mixers, like little 6-channel mixers and things.
Okay, but basically you got the bug.
Yeah, I got the bug and I really enjoyed it, and I was making cassettes and giving them to friends, and that was it.
And you were trying to make rave music, basically. Was that?
Yeah, I was trying to make rave, but actually it was closer to techno because of the lack of samples.
Right. Okay.
But I was.
Have you still got any of that stuff?
Yeah, there's some of that stuff floating around.
Really?
I
Okay.
sent a demo to Warp. I started listening to a lot of Aphex.
Yeah.
Sort of with the first Ambient Works album and the Surfing on Sine Waves and stuff like that. So I was trying to make that sort of stuff, send it to Warp. Of course, they never got back to me because they're dealing with Aphex, LFO, Auteca.
Yeah,
There's me sending
pretty decent artists. at
me
the time,
sending
too.
the world's worst music to them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then, at that point, I decided I wanted to study something in this field. So, I applied to Newcastle. That was music production, which was 50% sort of MIDI sequencing and sampling and 50% recording bands, miking drum kits, miking guitar amps.
So up to that point, were
So,
you
yeah.
self-taught in this stuff?
Yeah, self-taught, buying magazines like Sound on
Yeah,
Sound. Obviously, there's no YouTube tutorials back then, but like learning what I could. And I still knew more than a lot of people on the course. A lot of people went to the course completely dry,
Right.
like never having done anything apart from maybe played in a band. So I had a bit more knowledge than some people.
Okay.
But yeah.
So what was it like being in a structured environment? Trying to
Yeah,
do
well,
stuff?
I went for this tiny village to Newcastle, which is a relatively big city. It's like the most northern UK English city, I guess, before you hit Scotland.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of things. It was a big city. It was a structured learning environment. They had about 4 or 5 big studios, so huge analog desks, like sort of labs with sort of 10 to 15 Macs in them. Yeah. So this was before DAWs really had audio capabilities.
Yeah.
So it's mainly MIDI sequencing, sequencing like Romplers, sound modules, things like that, sequencing samplers. Yeah, so I suddenly had access to all this equipment. It was 24-hour access, so you'd book, 6 hours through the night to work on the project you were doing for college. You'd knock that out as soon as you could, and then spend the rest of the time experimenting. Yeah, it was
Okay.
fun. Yeah.
Wow, that must have been great, actually.
Yeah, no, it was amazing for me. I only had a relatively small amount of equipment myself, but someone else in my kind of halls of residence who I spotted wearing a Warp t-shirt when he was using the payphone. So I approached him, and he had a slightly better amount of equipment. So we pulled the two sets of equipment together.
Okay.
Became the appallingly named Hardware
Okay.
live acid techno outfit. So acid
That's not a bad name.
Hardware was all right.
That's a pretty good name.
Yeah, kind of.
When you said it probably named, I was
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
I was bracing myself.
No, it
there.
wasn't anything offensive. We were Hardware and we were Drive Space at one point.
Okay.
So it was like we started playing gigs around Newcastle, sort of 150 BPM, acid techno, a bit of trance, a bit of sort of jungle breaks, a little bit slower than jungle, but kind of brought into the mix.
Kind of like now then.
Yeah, it's kind of. And no laptops back then, so the entire studio would come to gigs.
Oh, right.
So like
with
a table,
with the computer on
yeah,
stage.
tabletop PC with what do you call it, a CRT monitor.
Yeah. Yeah, enormous. Thing like, yeah.
Two 6-unit racks of like those big sort of heavy military kind of racks of equipment, and then a few bits and bobs and pedals, and I think probably a Behringer mixer, maybe a Mackie.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did a bunch of gigs, and then
And how was this received? Like, were you
pretty good? Yeah, it went okay. Like we would play maybe 45 minutes.
Yeah.
The songs were sort of mixed. They were sequenced out in full, and the whole set was like one sequence. So and then there'd be sections where only the synths were playing with MIDI, and at that point the sampler we had. This point one of us had an SO1, the most basic of all the Akais.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I think it had 8 sample slots, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, it was really basic. But we'd have sections where there'd just be the synths playing, and someone would load a different floppy of samples in that section, so that when the sampler sequence kicked in again, it would be ready with a new sounds.
Yeah. So I was getting my question, like, practically speaking, on stage, like, what are you doing? Because obviously everything is mostly loaded up, but like
obviously one person was mixing, just controlling the mixer, the auxiliary sending stuff out to reverb and delays, doing a bit of that, live and cutting the bass off channels using the mixer EQ, and then I think we had a bass station. So there's a bit of live,
those were great, weren't they?
Live tweaking. We had the Novation drum station, which was a 19-inch rack, so 808, 909 simulation.
Yeah.
So you could tweak the kind of...
That was proper analog.
It was like analog modeling.
Right.
It was like early version of analog modeling. So like you'd sweeping the...
Was the bass one also digital?
The bass station was digital oscillators analog filter.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, we would like be tweaking the synths, tweaking the sort of the decay on the ride cymbal and the noise on the 909 snare, and that kind of hard floor style build ups, and it was fun. Yeah, it was cool. Didn't really go anywhere. We actually had a cassette reviewed in like a local listings magazine and things like that. It's not. I still have these like little souvenirs, and then. Yeah, at the end of the course, Scott, the guy I was doing it with, he wanted to stay up there and make his life in Newcastle. He was from Manchester originally. And I decided to come back home to London, or to Hertfordshire, but ended up in London. And yeah, just that was the end of the act. And we both kind of went solo.
Okay. Yeah. And I suppose that's the answer to my question. Like, was the obvious thing for you to do next? I mean, another techno, can't call it a techno project, rave project. How did you view the kind of musical direction at the time? Do you remember? Like, how were you thinking about it? Was there different references coming in? Or
I was listening to, as I said, the rave stuff was starting to sort of drift away.
What year are we in when you finished?
Well, I finished the first time at college about 97.
Yeah.
So the kind of rave scene had peaked in the UK.
Yeah.
You were getting more into that sort of super club era.
I was just going to say that.
Things like Cream, Paul Oakenfold, Handbag House, Trance, Progressive House. So those are kind of influences on me. Still really into the Warp, Reflex, IDM kind of thing. So I was just trying to make what I could, but there's two things holding me back. One, the equipment I had. So literally some genres were like beyond my equipment, and also my skills. I'm still not particularly musical person, so like, not that I really wanted to make trance, but I didn't have that sort of music theory, melodic kind of basis to do that kind of stuff. So I was just it started to get a little bit nastier, the sort of just distorted techno really. You started to get some of the stuff by DJ Hell, some of the stuff from Europe. The Swedish techno was starting to come through with Drum Code and Adam Bayer and Planet Rhythm and people like that. So yeah, they were starting to get a little bit more
taste. The early version of which is quite different to the version of today.
The change, the evolution of that scene is incredible. But a little bit more, which actually worked in my favour, sort of distorted, compressed. I had like a whole rack of Behringer compressors. So everything was just squashed to death. And, obviously not the greatest sound ever, but it worked at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So, I mean, what was I presume when you were up in Newcastle, the shows you were playing were relatively local, were they? Or were you playing?
Yeah, I don't think we ever did we were never the warm-up act to a big, well-known DJ. It was more like sort of locals nights.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So when you moved down to London, and you start, as you mentioned, developing it and experimenting different stuff, what were the differences in the scene that you were around with? Like, what was there a kind of, I mean, the scene up in London, obviously fundamentally different to something like Newcastle, and particularly then, I mean, London was, despite the fact that, the scene, as you mentioned, the musical scene had changed a bit, some amazing stuff going on in London, techno-wise.
Yeah, so the Newcastle scene was either very sort of glam house. There's a night called Shindig up there.
Oh, Shindig, of course.
Or it was distorted, kind of... the sort of nastier side of the Aphex stuff, the stuff Andrew Weatherall was doing back then, quite abrasive sort of techno, almost industrial techno. So there were the two sides of the scene there. When I came to London, it was everything. Progressive house was starting to get really big. Tech house was coming through, obviously drum and bass, jungle. It was London had everything at the time. And it had such a network of record shops. You could just spend a whole day going around shops. Even if I couldn't afford to buy things, or buy many records, I'd be listening to everything. And just sort of soaking it all in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that whole ecosystem, we talked about it on the show many times, but such an important I guess incubator, for so many aspects of the scene.
Like you go into London, you do the shops in Soho, you do the shops in Covent Garden. There even back then there were like bars that you could just go and have a drink in, and there'd be a DJ playing really interesting like ambient stuff or the lighter side of techno or drum and bass. Like I can't really name a bar in London where I could take someone for a drink and listen to a good DJ. I guess it's economies of London and real estate and things like that, but that's just gone. And that was a great thing. You could just sit with your friends, talk about stuff, and you could always run to the DJ and ask what a certain record was. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. And in some cases, we're selling records as well, right?
Yeah, they'll be selling records, selling tickets, selling merchandise, and that's pretty much gone. Yeah.
So when does Perc start?
So when I was in Newcastle, we had this weird university project where we had to basically make a compilation album, like 10 tracks. Like individually we'd do it. And then every made up artist on this compilation had a different artist name, and you had to do like a sort of 50-word bio for each artist. So one would be drum and bass, one would be maybe trip hop, which was big at the time, one would be house. But it's all produced by you. So you'd make up these like 10 imaginary things.
Right.
And one of those, and the techno one of those was Perc.
Oh, right, okay.
So when the the Newcastle duo split up, I needed a new artist name, just looked at this university project, looked at the 10 names I'd randomly made up at the last minute before submitting it. And Perc was the one that stood out.
Sure.
So
okay.
that's it. Yeah.
And just going back a bit actually.
Yeah.
At what point did you become, and maybe this happened later on, but at what point did you become kind of confident in yourself as someone making, not necessarily confident as an engineer, but like someone, making stuff that you're happy with and making stuff that you're kind of confident in that other people might like?
I was making stuff that I was happy with myself, and I was, especially early in a production career, you advance a lot quicker than you do now. So I was confident in what I was making, but I was never that confident in someone signing it. My kind of bucket list of goals was so small. It was like, my dream is to hear a track in a club that I've produced. It wasn't like I want to be the world's biggest DJ.
I just want to hear something played out.
And then once that happened, then it's like, I want to have something on vinyl, because that was the only way to release stuff back then. So something on vinyl, and then I never really, in terms of career, I never had either confidence or aspirations to be even what I am today. It was like my dream was to work at a record label. That's what I wanted to do. Just not own the label, just be a member of staff.
Just be involved in the scene.
Just to be part of it. Yeah.
And
that would have been enough for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there a point at which, like just talking about making tunes?
Yeah.
Was there a point at which because you mentioned that you were making stuff that you were happy with, like relatively early on.
Yeah.
Like, was there a sort of a turning point? Like, because I'm thinking about my own kind of early attempts at making tunes, and there were definitely one or two bits where something just got unlocked, that I can kind of put my finger on. I mean, have you got similar?
Yeah, there was a friend who asked what I was listening to, and I went for a few things and told him, and he really introduced me to sort of the early drum code records and things like that. And I realized that my music was much too, not musical as such, but it was the tracks progressed. They had different sections. Sort of pads would come in further on. There was too much going on with them. They were too arranged.
Sure,
really.
That's exactly what my tunes are like. You were kind of like writing a symphony almost. You know what I mean? It just got
because you're aiming for like this big epic artistic statement. When like a 4-minute loop, cut the kick out in the middle for a bit, bring in a ride cymbal later on, and that's the kind of way.
Yeah, it's basically
that's it.
It's basically recognizing that the groove is the most important thing, and if you've got the groove, then that's and it's just really just kind of presenting that in a way.
Yeah, it's like if you look at that, like further on, you can Sleep Archive records where they might do something very subtly, but they're basically a loop and they work perfectly. Like you reach for them when you're DJing, and
Sleep Archive. Wow,
Yeah.
that's the name I haven't heard for a while. So good though, right?
Amazing stuff from him. Yeah, but this is a whole different thing we haven't started on yet. But obviously, we're in the age of social media. Someone that wants to keep a relatively low profile and makes loop techno tracks.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, it's a struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you were working for distribution for a while. When was that?
Yeah. So I came back from Newcastle, wanting to work in a studio. Got a job in a studio in Camden called Shore Sound, and I was the kind of T-boy, tape-op, resetting the desk after a session.
Yeah, so this is like, this is the very end of those jobs existing, basically. Because I mean, I remember like being in a similar position, not that much later, but maybe 3 or 4 years later, and just there not being really anything there. And then knowing a couple of people who ran studios and were like, you know, saying this is surely the route in, and just being told, well, kind of used to be, and it's basically over.
I was the last academic year at Newcastle that learned how to use tape, splice tape.
Right.
Then they switched to ADATs.
Yeah,
or maybe the Tascam
really.
version.
So with the old razor blade and
but I was like, I only had a very little amount of experience doing it.
Yeah.
And the studio I was at weren't going to let me do anything like that.
Okay. Yeah.
They weren't going to let me like comp together vocal takes or something. You know, that was too
I mean,
important for me to do.
Difficult work as well, right? Unless you
and imagine screwing it up.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
geez, that's right. Yeah, because you never think about that. Like, I mean, you can't undo like cutting a tape with a razor blade.
Yeah.
Not
So
happening.
but I remember the studio owner treated me really well, really nice, really kind, because I was on a minute wage. But the bands that came in treated you really badly,
Yeah, of course.
like your dog's body. So I didn't really enjoy that. The music was just straight up indie rock, which I've had sort of times in my life liking some stuff from that scene, but it wasn't. My head was so in the electronic thing at the time.
Were there any notable bands that came through, or?
I'd say the only thing we had was Nick Hayward of Haircut 100. He had done Haircut 100, then the inevitable solo career.
Yes.
Then that had started to go, I guess, just fade away, really.
Yeah,
Interest
as
in what he was doing.
things do, yeah.
And this was his last roll of the dice. His record label said, like, here's some money, record a few demos. And I think that was the end of him. And so I'm not claiming any
Taking
part in his
credit,
downfall.
yeah.
It wasn't me that tried to make him sound like Ortega or something.
Nick Hayward, my part in his downfall. Yeah.
But that was the end of him. Yeah.
Okay.
So I left there. I don't know how long I did. Maybe 6 months. I went back to a job I was doing in Hertfordshire, which was just working in a warehouse, but at least it was a steady work, like supermarket warehour. And
Let me ask you,
plotted my next move.
do you feel like you learned anything of use from that experience?
I guess, people skills, working with clients. You know, as you hire a studio, you're on a clock, set amount of hours, set amount of money paid for them. So, studio sessions always seem very slow at the start. And then suddenly we've only got one song done, we've got 2 hours left, we're trying to do a 4-track EP. So like dealing with pressure, dealing with bands, getting angry. Also, sometimes you'd be in the studio and the band itself would implode on it because they're under time and financial pressure.
Yeah, right. And most of them usually hate each other anyway. to some
Yeah,
degree.
so it was just like there was one little trigger and the band would go off and you try and calm them down because you want them to leave with something that they're at least satisfied with.
Yeah,
Even if
absolutely.
it's not the greatest thing ever. Like you don't want to waste their money.
Yeah.
So a little bit of people skills, more experience working with big desks and things. But but not really. It was just not what I wanted to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were saying?
Yeah, so I went back to a warehousing job for 6 months. Then I decided to go back to university because can't decide what to do. Go to uni,
Obviously.
run up some more debt.
Yeah.
So I went to Manchester, and there I studied media and business. The media side of it, you could choose like a strand, like journalism or whatever, blah blah blah. So I did music production again.
Yeah.
So more music production, and the business side of it was like tax, accounts, which is actually pretty useful stuff to know.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that
Yeah.
most artists would do well to.
So I know my way around a spreadsheet and a tax kind of return and stuff, which is cool. Yeah, more music, more using the studios for stuff that wasn't the coursework.
Right.
And there, so I did.
So you're pretty proficient by this point, obviously, right?
That the studios were a higher level there. They had they also had a separate room of old analog equipment, because this time analog equipment was quite frowned upon by some. It's why that whole thing of dance music producers buying it cheap and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So they had like, ARP 2600, MS-20s, all the Junos. They had like SH-101. They had a really nice selection of gear, so it's nice to use that, because obviously I was reading a lot about that being used in dance music. They didn't have a 909, sadly. They had an 808, so it's fun to play on one of those. Things like that. So I was using all that stuff up. I was starting to push the Perc thing a bit more. I was starting to DJ with vinyl, which was something I hadn't done to start with. So yeah, it was another 3 years of mucking about.
Had you had your first vinyl release at that point?
No. I graduated from Manchester in 2000, and my first vinyl release was 2001.
Right.
So yeah.
And what was that?
So I graduated from university and started working at Prime, which is a distributor.
Yeah, right. That's how we got to this. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And then I started sending out.
Let me just ask you, with regards to Prime, was that just again another sort of case of just wanting to be involved in the scene?
Yeah.
In some way?
So when I was at Manchester, we had to do, and I think in our final year we had to do a 3 or 4 month internship. So I interned at Platypus, which was a seminal trance label.
Absolutely.
In Fulham.
Fans of Platypus on this show, absolutely.
In Fulham, in London.
Yeah, right.
So I interned there, and it went pretty well. And they said, hey, when you come out of university, there'll be a job for you. Like,
who ran Platypus? I've no idea.
It's founded and run by Simon Berry, who's Art of Trance.
Ah, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Right. Also great.
But back then, they were selling so much vinyl, so many CDs, doing so much licensing. They had like 5 or 6 staff.
Yeah, they must have been making money.
Big office, big studio. Okay. So I worked there. They said there's definitely a job for you when you come out of university. You can just basically carry on what you were doing as an intern, but obviously paid. I get down there. Well, I graduate. I call them up. Hey, can I have my job, please? And they're like, no. Because we've had a staff reshuffle, we've actually had to cut some stuff. I guess this is 2000, maybe vinyl sales starting to drop off.
Well, yeah, something had happened in the music industry the previous year. Yeah.
So, but they said the manager you're working with is now at Prime Distribution, so hit him up, see what's going on. Prime was a much bigger company than Platypus. Platypus had 5 or 6 people, Prime had 60. So I got a job there as the manager from Platypus, who was then at Prime. I was his assistant.
Right, okay.
So working on everything from the in-house labels, which was Primate, Primeval, all that kind of stuff. Also the in-house publishing wing, which we published
Primate, the techno label.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I never put those two things together. Yeah,
so Prime's a distribution company. It distributed, God knows, a couple of 100 labels, mainly techno, but a little bit of like tech house and whatever that imports that they can make money off. They did all Chris Liebing's labels, Ben Sims labels, all the Swedish Adam Beyer drum code related stuff. And so they had their own in-house labels, Primate being the flagship and Primeval, and Primary was like a sort of deep tech house thing as well.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, obviously, kind of alluded to Napster having become a like industry wrecking thing the previous year. I mean, obviously, that was the major effect of Napster was to detonate the CD market, but it must have, thinking about it now, must have had a significant effect on vinyl sales too. Yeah. And obviously, but this was the era at which vinyl sales began to decline. I mean, it was a kind of, I suppose, a relatively slow decline compared to the decline of the CD market.
Yeah, it was like you could see it coming because I joined in 2000, but I had access to the computer system, could see kind of historical sales data going backwards, and it was definitely dropping off. The big labels. It was kind of, in terms of percentages, it was equivalent for all labels. So if you were selling, 2,000, you still lose maybe 20, 30% of your sales. If you're selling 10,000, you lose 30% of your sales. Yeah. But you could see it coming. And at Prime, it was very much a boys' club. There was like 60 employees, maybe only 5 of them were female. Okay. And they had that kind of too big to fail attitude because they'd had years of such relentless success.
Yeah, you just assume that
they assume that they didn't. It's a bit like Titanic. They didn't see the iceberg coming. They thought they'd be big forever. They thought they knew everything about how the music was progressing because they'd got kind of quite lucky with the Swedish stuff. They were also the Ben Sims hard groove thing was really big for them, and there was millions of those kind of records coming out on different labels all the time, and they didn't pay attention or see the kind of first wave of minimal and the rise of things like compact.
Right.
They like a lot of that music was sent to us. Do we want to be the UK distributor for some of these German labels? And they immediately like put it on for like 10 seconds when that's garbage.
Wow.
And then like
Really?
yeah, and then because it was very quite an arrogant kind of sense of entitlement.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
Interesting.
like dealing with people like Michael Mayer back then who wanted to work with us, and the not me, who I wasn't a decision maker, but the bosses were like, no, we're fine, we're cool.
Okay.
And then that sound got really big.
I know it took over.
Yeah, kind of micro house and minimal. And
Who did they go with this for distro? Do you know who was the company that, or was there one company that took up that stuff
compact or something?
for the minimal stuff? Yeah.
I don't know, really. Like,
Yeah.
because obviously this was an era where huge distributors were going bust all the time. Because you had things like Word and Sound, Neuton, these big German companies.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think probably. I wouldn't be surprised if Compact was self-distributing at one point, because they had the kind of...
They did have a distribution company.
They had the
didn't
setup,
they? Yeah. I mean, you're right to say that lots of distribution companies were going bust. I mean, this is the era of the simultaneously high vinyl sales, but also people not getting paid because their distributor goes under.
Distributors going bust all the time. You'd have your main distributor, but then you'd have like territory deals with distributors in other places, like especially in Germany or France, and then these would go bust, and that's it. Poof.
Yeah, just gone.
And it wasn't like it wasn't like you lose £1,000. It was like people losing like 100,000 quid.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I mean, because sales were, I mean, relatively speaking, anyway, enormous, right?
And this has taught me always like invoice on time. If someone owes you money, get it as quick as you can. Because I knew artists that were like very much partying, spending a lot of money on just like travel, partying, everything that goes along with that. So they were using these distributors as bank accounts.
Right.
So every month they'd be given their sales statement, and they wouldn't invoice for it. They'd say, no, keep the money to stop me spending it, exactly. And then it went bust, and they lost like 2 years' sales. Pretty much enough to buy an apartment, a house. Which is one guy was saving for the house by not taking it out of the company. I'll tell you who it is later. And and then lost a lot. Yeah,
ouch,
horrible. Yeah, but you should always get your money out of anywhere.
Yeah,
as soon as possible. It's just sensible.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with Prime, how long were you there for?
I was there for about 2.5 to 3 years, which is when it went bust.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when Prime... Okay, so were you referring to... Were a Prime client then when you just said there's someone who just said, right, okay. Wow. So what was the fallout? And when I say fallout, I suppose I mean, for people who are working for the company, like there must have been a bit of animosity towards stuff.
Anyone with a brain could have seen it coming.
Yeah.
Like there's not much the company could do about it. I think they started building up debt. Sales were down. There was quite a sort of family atmosphere in the distribution company. They didn't want to let people go. Obviously, one way of maybe saving it would be to let 50% of the staff go, downsize, and they didn't want to do that. They wanted to keep everyone together, which obviously was a sort of long-term a bad mistake. Yeah. When it got to the point where you didn't know you were going to get your wages every month. We had 2 or 3 months like this, and then I think it's some rule, like basically if a company can't pay its staff, it's bankrupt. So that's kind of one of the indicators of it. So we all got called down to the warehouse. The boss stood on a box of records and told everyone, like, from immediate effect, we're closing. They hand out the forms from like the government, to apply for compensation. So you got after a few weeks, we got the month of wages we were owed plus a month of wages for every year we were there. So for some people, that was like, 10 years of work, almost a year of money. Yeah. So some people were okay. Some people that joined recently were in a bit of a hole. Yeah. But and then you had labels wanting to come and get their stock. You had a lot of because back then a lot of music was recorded to DAT, sent by post to us because we had the P&D deals. So we were manufacturing records on behalf of the label and paying them a royalty. Yeah. So there was like drawers and drawers of these DAT cassettes of the like classic techno releases, and then the receivers or liquidators, they came and kind of administrators. They came and kind of basically took control of the building, wouldn't let anyone in. Wow. So people wanted their DATs of these tracks, whatever. And then you get arguments over ownership of the work. Right. Do the administrators own the work? They have no interest in techno releases, but are they going to sell? But it's assets, right? It's assets, so they could sell the. People were worried that their music would be sold to another label, another distribution company that might not represent them the way they wanted to be. Whatever. It was very messy. But yeah, I got out of there fairly quickly.
And what was the, like I said, what was the attitude amongst other people in the industry and people who had a stake in it, but I guess other people, like how much blame was sort of aimed at people like you, people who were sort of, I guess, relatively junior, but like, was there any sort of like...
Yeah, no, I got away with it personally fairly easily. I felt really sorry for, like, it was like the graphic designer that designed, but also printed all like the sleeves for the Primate stuff. Like he was owed, so much money, and we'll pay you next month. Do one more sleeve for us, and we'll pay you next month. So and it's as someone like that, when do you sort of terminate your relationship and say, look, this has gone on too long, or do you keep going on with these people and whatever? So there's a lot of people like that who are chasing money. There was a lot of people helping themselves to records. Right. Like just grabbing handfuls of records and stuff and I guess selling them themselves. So yeah, it all got a bit messy. But yeah, most of the labels went on to other places. There was an attempt to start up a sort of like it's rise from the ashes with a new company, but that didn't last very long.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you've been running Perctrax for the longest time now. I mean, that experience at Prime must have been a great educating experience for running a label.
Yeah, of course. I saw how much money was wasted. I saw obviously there's a value in a label having a defined sound, a recognizable sound, but if you stay like that forever, eventually it's going to, the scene is going to move on and you're going to be left behind. So it's kind of, it taught me a lot about running labels. My boss at Prime was very good at, I guess what you'd call kind of back catalogue, maximization, exploitation, making the most of your back catalogue, and especially now in the digital age, that's even more important, like just making new products out of old music.
Yeah, can you talk a bit more about that in the context of how the previous model, so what kind of strategy?
Yeah, so they would sign something, a track, so say it's part of a 4-track EP, that would be released. If the track did well, then obviously there'd be maybe a spin-off set of remix EP, like Ben Sims Manipulated with the Adam Bayer remix, which was the 50th Primate release. That's a great example of that. Then they would do, even like the track would appear again on a sort of various artists, almost like greatest hits EP. They would do CD compilations. They would look to license it out to other territories. So it's about, signing a track. Back then you'd pay in advance on it, and then just squeezing the most out of it, not just releasing it once and hoping it would do well.
Yeah. Right.
And then in this day and age, it's much more about, like digital compilations. It's a bit cheesy, but like Perctrax and other labels will do the best of the year digital compilation. I might not put it on Bandcamp, which is much more the sort of the cutting edge of what I do, but on like Juno,
people take things a bit more seriously on Bandcamp.
On Juno and Beatport, there'll be the tracks of the year. There's also, I do sort of collections of the best remix every year or two, the best remixes that have appeared in that period. Yeah, it just helps, even if it's just adds another 10-20% of the sales, it all helps.
Yeah, sure. And to a large extent, I mean, it's easy to be cynical about that kind of thing, but to a large extent, you're just putting it in front of people again, and people might have missed it the first time, and it's just like, it's just visibility as much as anything else, right?
Also, if you think of something like Beatport and artists being tagged on a release, if you put out a 4-track EP by one artist, there's one tag on it. There's Perc or whatever. But if you put out a remix collection, it's, say, 10 remixes, so you've got the original artist for each track, plus the remixer, so that's 20 tags. On the compilation, it's got more chance of pulling people in somehow.
The grubby world of music marketing, music retail.
It's kind of boring.
No, like I said,
it just helps.
Like I said, it's easy to be cynical, but it's just the reality of doing it, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're trying to sell people's music for them to a large extent. So
I normally tell people on Perctrax their track will be released at the most 3 times, normally twice, like the original release and then a compilation release. But I don't want to release something 10 times and sort of spam Beatport, which a lot of people do, but they have to realize it's going to be sold more than once.
Yeah, totally. So when did the label start? What was the first release?
The label started in 2004.
Okay.
So coming out...
about the time you...
Yeah, I finished at Prime. I was back in doing temporary office work in London. And I got a call from Peter Pritchard, who was the boss of Nucleus, which was never in my kind of musical remit. But Nucleus was a huge sort of hard house.
Had they been
trance.
on Prime?
No, they're not. They were always with our rivals, Intergroove. UCMG and Intergroove and all that stuff. So I got this call from someone saying our label manager has just quit. Do you want to take over? Label manager, actually a fairly senior position in the company, apart from the owner. I guess it was sort of one of the equal sort of second tier jobs. So I took over as label manager of Nucleus without knowing anything about hard house. I knew a bit about trance, but I didn't know anything about hard house. This is the world of BK, Lisa Lashes, Andy Farley, a whole thing. So it was quite interesting. I was at Nucleus. We had our big rival, which was Tidy Tracks. And it was Prime was very open, and we're like just a bunch of lads having a laugh. But Nucleus was like deadly serious, like NDAs about talking about the release schedule, things like that. Signing artists, telling them they couldn't tell anyone they'd signed to us. Things like that. It was all very hush hush. I think because it was such a UK based scene, everyone in the industry was going to the same clubs every weekend. Partying, after parties, talking about, we just signed this. So and also this was a time Nucleus had this very clever idea of, it had about 10 labels, but they were all, instead of each label having a separate identity, they were all called Nucleus, and they had different coloured sleeves. So blue was hard house, red was I think trance, all these kind of things. But because they were all called Nucleus, they counted as one label in terms of sales, rather than having 10 individual labels. So that made Nucleus the country's highest selling vinyl label. So they were talking about this a lot. They were getting press off the back of that. They were getting stuff into the charts. So Nucleus was very cleverly run. It was much more intelligent, strategic than Prime.
Who was the guy?
The guy was called Peter Pritchard.
He said so.
Who, I don't know how he started. He started something, he was like a producer for Pete Tong's Essential, was called the Essential Selection, that Friday night Pete Tong show. He did that, then he got into somehow, ringtones were really twisted around it. That thing we used to buy a ringtone of your favourite. He got into that early on and did it legally, like getting the rights and doing it properly. So he made all his money doing that. Then he set up Nucleus. So there was a big Italian record company called Media Records, which was, I think, Mauro Picasso and people came out of that. And the early Italian piano house, 49ers, that kind of sound. So Peter's idea was to take these big hit Italian records that had big hooks, big vocals, big piano lines, and make them into hard house records for the UK scene. So, and BK, Ben Keane, BK, hard house legend, was the in-house engineer. So we get these parts of these like Italian house records, make them a lot faster, a lot harder.
Got a massive kick
and they were huge. Vinyl sales were huge. Compilation licensing was huge. Started sort of tickling the lower regions of the UK charts. Like things going in, 1 week at 33 in the top 40 and things like that. So it was doing really well. But the problem is I came into the company.
Let me just ask. How many did you have to sell to get into like the top 40 in that era? How many? Because all vinyl sales as well. Right?
Vinyl sales. We do CD single on some things.
There
was no streaming or download sales incorporated. I'm not sure, 5 to 10,000 like that in a week. Yeah, so it was a real push. Like there were a lot of all the majors. The majors are still doing this now, but a lot of emphasis on first week sales, discounts. The 12-inch would be, say, $3.99 in HMV on the first week. It would go to $7.99 in the second week. Multiple 12s of the same release, different remixes across different vinyls. Every trick you could to try and get it in the charts. But I came in, I didn't really understand this music that well. I started going to a lot of clubs. I was sort of helping manage some of the events. They did events at Camden Palace and Brixton Academy, things like that. So I was sort of also helping manage the events at weekends. And I don't know why, I was quite young and headstrong, and I was really wrapped up in that kind of drum code techno thing because my hard house wasn't really a love of mine. So I started trying to steer the label a bit more towards the kind of nastier, Hoover driven, what you call it, underground hard house, less vocals, more emphasis on sort of the sort of abrasive sounds and things like that. So I did that, and a lot of people welcomed that as a really good thing for the label, but of course that's not going to go into the UK charts.
I was going to say,
so I didn't survive that long at Nucleus. I think maybe a year. And I got the push. So it's fine. But it was fun while it lasted, and it was interesting to see a whole different scene. Meet people. I still sometimes I'm looking for a phone number in my on my iPhone, and it's like BK Lisa Lashes, Lisa Pin Up. These people,
Of course.
that I was dealing with on a daily basis back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a very strange time.
Totally. What was a trade at Turnmills, right? That was
So I went to trade a few times.
Yeah.
And various other nights, more sort of progressive nights. I like Turnmills. Did you ever go?
I did, yeah. I went to.
Yeah.
I used to be a big Heavenly Social
Okay, yeah, that's
bod.
cool.
So
Yeah.
that was the night of how we talked about this with Richard Fearless when he was on.
Yeah.
That was the night before trade. So Heavenly Social would finish at 3, and then they'd close for an hour, and then open up again at 5
Yeah.
for trade, which would go on all day on Sunday. Those were interesting times for sure.
Yeah, trade was amazing, and Turnmills as the venue itself just
Yeah, it was
felt
great, wasn't it?
Felt
Yeah.
right. Felt like how a London club should be.
Yeah.
I loved it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So so you mentioned starting a label.
Yeah.
This is after you left.
Well, yeah, it started while I was at Nucleus. I was contractually not allowed to have any other business interests.
Okay.
So it was on the sort of on the slide. But it was fine. I worked on the Perctrax at night time, and it was fine. The reason for setting up Perctrax was just about control. Like back then, a lot of labels wanted exclusive artist names. I had exclusive deals with a few labels by then. And the idea was to shut all those down, get control of the Perc name again, which was on a 2 or 3 EP deal with another label, and just have control over artwork, mainly control over release schedule, because I was starting to earn a bit of money, some money, not a lot, and my studio was getting a bit better, my skills were getting better, and you'd sign something to one label and they'd release it within 6 months because I had to manufacture the vinyl, and then another label would take 2.5 years to release something. So my music wasn't coming out sequentially. So one release I would think I was quite proud of, and the next one would be so old that it felt like it didn't represent me anymore. So it was a bit like that. So it's just about taking control. It was never meant to be for other artists, hence the name. It's my tracks, my label. And then of course within the first few releases, people start sending you demos, and it becomes a real label, not just an outlet for your own stuff.
Yeah, right. So so when was the first vinyl release that you had?
First vinyl was 2004.
Yeah, and what was that?
That was me. That was a track by me with a remix by me on the B-side under a different name.
Yeah, okay.
Because either I didn't trust or couldn't afford someone to do the remix.
And how much of an exciting event was this for you? Was this just like...
Yeah, it was really exciting to do it. I was really happy with the track. I got it out as quick as I could. I was distributed. I was a P&D, so production and distribution deal with I can't even think, but a distributor up in the north of England. They did a fairly good job on it. The first release, so there wasn't a lot of financial pressure because they were bankrolling it. The first release didn't do that well. Maybe we pressed 500. It did maybe 150, and it was looking bad for the label. And then this was an era of compilation licensing being quite a lucrative. Stream of income, and James Abelia licensed the remix that I'd done under a different pseudonym. He licensed that for a Renaissance mix, and the label was saved.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the money from the what do you call it, the advance, the licensing was enough to pay off any vinyl debt.
Yeah.
Keep the distributor happy.
Yeah.
And then once the compilation came out, the fans of the compilation started hunting down the vinyl.
Right, James to the rescue. Wow.
Yeah, so that happened twice. The label, the third release as well was licensed.
Okay.
To Armin van Buren's label.
Right.
Even though it wasn't a trance record.
Yeah. All right.
And that's so those two licenses saved the label.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So talk a bit about the differences. I mean, there's some obvious things to mention here, but the differences between running a label now and a label then. Particularly, actually, I'm interested in sort of promo side and getting records noticed. Yeah. What are the practical differences? And
back then I would be sent a bunch of white labels. I would send maybe 10 or 20 to my closest friends, or give them by hand in the London club scene, and then my distributor had a much larger promo list, and for cost they would send out. And that was about it. You'd get feedback reports. Back then it was much more a case of like throwing a record out and then hoping, compilation licensing or radio play would happen, or you bump into someone in a club and they say, I really love that thing from 6 months ago. So it was much more random. You could think a record had flopped, and then actually in reality it was slowly building up a kind of underground momentum.
Yeah.
These days, you know, obviously it's completely different. You send out stuff on social media, PR companies sending out digital promos, and then I think feedback is much more instant, or the lack of feedback can be very can be very instant. Yeah. What I've learned, especially in the last few years, is great DJ feedback doesn't equate to good sales.
Yeah, sure.
And also records that DJs completely pass over do really well, because the fans or the kind of the buying public are a completely different animal to the record to DJs out there. So I don't put too much faith now in DJ feedback. It's good to get it. It's good to get people playing stuff either just before something comes out or like the week of release, especially if it's, you know, filmed and Instagram clips and things like that. But I don't do it too hard. I don't beg people to play something. I send out a few individual messages, but more it's a mass mail out. Yeah. And then the whole thing now extending to like trying to get on playlists and things. It's not something I've particularly engaged with that much. The whole Spotify playlisting thing just seems quite a dirty kind of game.
I think that's an accurate representation of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot. You know, these playlisting companies pay us this much, we'll get you on these playlists. You don't know how legit that is. You know, and also if you get on a Spotify playlist and it's say quadrupled your plays, financially that's still very little income.
Yeah.
So if maybe it helps you get DJ bookings, then that's a positive. But in terms like if you're just trying to get on playlists to increase Spotify income, then it's pointless. Yeah.
For a new act, a new artist, how significant is I was going to say how significant is music, and that's kind of what I want to say, but like
I know, I know what you mean.
It seems like it's becoming like less significant, but obviously it's not. It can't be completely insignificant.
Yeah,
like how do you? I guess what I'm getting is like how do you get noticed? How do you break through? How do you? Do you know what I mean? Wow.
Yeah, I know it's hard in a music scene where music isn't the most important thing. Then something's clearly wrong. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I feel lucky enough to have come through at a time, and yourself, like when music mattered. It still matters, but it was the priority back then.
Yeah.
If I was a young guy, let's say early 20s, late teens, whatever, I don't know how I would start. You know, I guess you're making content around your music, but that's just so grim, you know.
What I always think is that like, yes, it is grim, but I mean, you can do it in a way which makes sense for you, right?
Yeah, it's got to be something you're comfortable with. But yeah, if you see someone making like a video that they're clearly uncomfortable with for like 50 likes, it's horrible. It's just like something inside them dies every time.
Yep.
Yeah. I saw some stupid thing. It was kind of funny. It was on Instagram yesterday, and it was Basquiat, the artist. And it was like, try telling him to make short form content for the algorithm.
Right, okay.
And it's like cringy, but it was like just funny to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, you do mentoring and teaching, right?
Yeah, I do. I've started doing it a bit through.
So how do you? I mean, how do you try and make sense of this to kids? I mean, like
it's hard because obviously people are paying for this thing and they want answers.
Right.
It's not just advice down the pub. So first you have to say that there's no right and wrong way there's no guaranteed success route for anyone.
Yeah.
And then it's just,
and that's never been true.
And it's hard to sort of keep at it, stay true to yourself, don't copy other people. It's the most basic advice. And like, I guess regular posting, it's regular social media posting, but not posting just, like not posting about your morning coffee, like, or what you had for lunch. But then some people love to see that. If you're an artist that really promotes themselves on image and lifestyle, then people want to see your lunch. They want to see you having like, lunch at a kind of beachside cafe overlooking the ocean. That's beautiful, but that's not kind of what I'm about.
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah, I think people should value their music more. I've seen a lot of artists who make music as quickly as possible using like splice samples and things like that. And their idea is just to make as much as possible, chuck it out, any label that will take it, big or small, and just hope something sticks. And it's almost like carpet bombing, just building up a massive profile and hoping something happens.
Yeah.
When I was younger, maybe not so much now, I was probably making like one EP a year and putting my heart and soul into it and presenting it as like, this is my next step in my sort of artistic journey or development. And I think that's gone now. And it's just chucking stuff out. I don't know, to advise a young artist what to do, I have no idea because,
I mean, I think you're right to say that it's a kind of volume game now, and
Yeah.
honestly, like I think people are just responding to the incentives, because I mean I think that's what you're largely speaking rewarded for. It's like you say, you've got to be consistent,
Yeah.
you've got to be you've got to be active basically, and that's as true for releasing music as it is for posting on social media, and that's, I mean, fundamentally bad, I think, for art, in
art and
quotation
music,
marks,
yeah.
but it's also the reality, or seeming reality.
Yeah.
You know?
If I get a demo email and they say, I've got music coming up on these 12 labels, or they even list like, oh, here's my release schedule and it's like 10 EPs, then that's a immediate no, really. Because it's just like, I don't want to be part of that kind of just like bargain basement, chuck it out. Yeah. It's just horrible. Yeah. So it's hard because Perctrax, the label, I can't do enough for an artist to either sign them exclusively or just have a sort of gentleman's agreement that like I get to hear everything first and I'm their primary label. I don't have the power to do that for someone and give them enough of an income maybe to survive without working a job. But at the same point, I don't want someone someone releasing on 12 labels and it's just chucked out, and it's horrible. So like, I think as an artist, having a kind of home label, whether it's your own or one you're associated with, and then doing a few bits for other people works well. But yeah, if you're just working with anyone that will take your music, it shows a real lack of kind of how you're valuing your own music yourself.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, you're sending a message with that, if it's implied or not. You know. Like,
yeah.
Totally. So, okay, let's just finish up by talking about our favorite topic on the podcast, which is hard techno.
Yeah.
Your music is. I was listening to the recent stuff this morning. Actually, some of it's really fast, like excessively fast. If you don't mind me saying.
Yeah.
But but it's not hard techno, right? Because hard techno is like this kind of stupid, goofy clown step. You know, sped up tech house nonsense, and it is fast and it is sort of techno, but maybe it's not techno, and we'll talk about that in a sec.
Yeah.
But I mean, in my list of notes, I have a note from you saying that you tiptoed around the harder side.
Because
go on.
My music is hard. It's techno. It's my BPMs are coming down a bit at the moment, I think, on the label and for me as an artist and DJ and whatever. But it's a scene that I've kind of been on the edge of. Like, I was part, for my sins, of that kind of rise of possession, the Paris parties, and that really opened people up to the harder and especially faster side of techno. Like, about
I wasn't aware of this. What
I wasn't like a resident or anything, but I was one of the first. I was one of the first people to be booked by them when it had no profile, and it was a small Paris club night.
When was that?
God, I don't know,
Roughly.
2017, 18, something like that, pre-pandemic. Possession was a party run by women, but mainly running events in male-focused LGBT clubs.
Oh, okay.
So they were booking male artists. 99% of the people in the club were guys, and it kind of that, and they were doing that for a few years, and then it went into the warehouses. Instagram kind of got on it. I think there was a very viral Dax J performance where everyone was like, dancing on the speakers, shirts off, and the whole thing blew up at that point. And the music got kind of harder and faster there. But it even goes back to the sets I was playing with back to back with Truss, who's now part of Overmono.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, we were like just playing a little bit faster. Kind of two lads, we were almost G'ing each other on to play something, I don't want to say stupider than the one before, but just like things you'd never hear back then in techno sets, like sort of Stay Up Forever, London Acid, German, the sort of better side of German trance, some of the early Dutch kind of hardcore.
Yeah, some awesome music.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff we were playing, and we do this thing where the set would be maybe 138, 140 for a lot of the set, and then the last half an hour would go ramp up to maybe 150, and people loved that kind of energy section at the end. And those sets now look quite kind of tame. But back then people were like shocked by it.
Yeah.
And we were doing a lot of festivals. We were doing the closing set, so it worked perfectly. And like now, as I said, like now it's become a whole different beast. It's not overproduced is a strange term, but it's kind of any kind of tiny amount of dynamic range or anything is squashed out of it.
It's EDM.
It's EDM by another name. The sort of continual pop edits. I don't like people calling themselves a producer when all they make is edits. Like someone did an edit of one of my tracks, made it a lot harder about a year ago, and I wrote to them and said, I'd prefer you not to put this out, especially I'd prefer you not to sell this. And I said, like politely said, you focus on your own music, do your own thing. Any of the guys, like I don't make music, I only do edits. Like it's like, what can you do? I know people that have used Ableton for making edits and stuff, or just putting together preset loops. Now they never touch the plugins.
Right.
Like, it's not. It's just literally. It's just putting it together like Lego. Maybe a tiny bit of like volume automation or something, and that's it. Done. So yeah, it's a really strange scene, hard techno, and it's not. For a long time, I was in favor of it because I was thinking, this is like tweaking the nose of like established dad techno, techno that hasn't really progressed for years. I think it's like a sort of, it's almost like a punk versus progressive rock moment, and I really liked it. And I was quite happy to be part of it a few years ago. And now it's gone to a point where I'm sick of it. And it's just endless edits. It's endless kind of the way it's played, the way it's mixed, the performative aspect of it, both on stage and on social media. It's just not something I'd be comfortable with. And there was a time where people were booking me on those things, I guess, to add someone with a bit of, I don't know, legacy or experience. And it's now, I will now say no to those gigs, And a good thing is that the two scenes are completely split. You used to have guys playing, let's call it classic techno at the start of the night, and it would go into the hard techno later, or you'd have a room of each at an event. And now the audiences are so split that each audience has no interest in the other scene. So there's no point doing a kind of having both genres at one event. They're completely separate, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's crazy calling it techno, to be honest. And all of those artists and all of those DJs will describe themselves as techno DJs. Yeah. And I think I think it's actually basically a fraudulent manner now. I think it's got anything to do with it. And honestly, the bigger that's become, the more the casual observer associates that and actually just thinks that is what techno is.
Yeah, that's what's sad. It's the highest profile version of techno right now, whether it's techno or not. And so people see that's what they think techno is.
Yeah.
I think it's very, of course the industry is professional and it's been like this for like 20, 30 years or whatever, but it's so hyper professional. Like if an artist breaks through somehow on social media, immediately they'll have a manager who will then plan the next few years of growth, what festivals are going to be playing, what sort of targets for social media numbers, a social media strategy. Yeah. The whole thing is just, and I understand that. Like I spoke to a guy in a festival I played in France, and he openly admitted that he tried to be a drum and bass artist, then a sort of more like Tale of Us deep techno artist, and then hard techno. He kept trying till something stuck, and he's starting to get a bit of like sort of leverage in his career doing hard techno. Admitted he hated the music. He wasn't a producer, he was only a DJ. Yeah. Admitted he doesn't like what he's playing. But it was that or his previous job in McDonald's. So which one would you do?
Yeah.
Which is soulless, it's anti-art, it's everything I hate. But then you see his side of it.
Sure. Making
decent money as a young guy traveling the world.
I mean, when you put it like that, it's fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, anyone would say that. And I always wonder if I've never had a manager, but if a manager said to me, Ali, I can see exactly what you're doing wrong. I guarantee you, like we could double your income, double your gigs within 12 months. Would I consider that and go, okay, let's give this a go? Or I think I would hope something inside me would be like, yeah, no. I'd listen to what they were saying because it would be of interest.
Sure.
But I would be like, nah, that's not. Yeah. I'm too old to be taking my shirt off these days. not that I ever have, but it's too much. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, management is an interesting one. We talked a bit.
Yeah, you've had a manager at times.
I have had various different managers. Yeah. And I think they've all, how many managers have I had? 3. Yeah. And they've all been good in different ways. And that's the thing about management. Like there is no set kind of,
I'm sure there's good ones out.
What it is. Yeah. And different people bring different things to the table. I mean, I've said before on the show that actually I think like that what I've needed the most at different points is actually more of a business manager.
People running the back end stuff.
And I think that's true for a lot of people. A lot of musicians are just bad at organization, but also just like you just get kind of like carried away in the lifestyle of it and all the rest of it.
You're successful and busy.
And it screws so many people over, who just make a lot of money but don't have anything at the end of it. Yeah.
The worst thing for Perctrax has been artists who've been working with me directly and it's been going well. Then they, for some reason, take on a manager who either there's three of you then in the relationship, or the artist is pushed aside and you only deal directly with the manager.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's always bad, that relationship. I've had similar stuff on Hot
horrible.
Flush. Yeah.
I always think if a manager's getting, say 20%, so if he wants to make, say, £1,000, he's got to make £5,000. So like, if you think of like commercializing an artist, for the manager to make a decent wage, it's got to go a lot further than maybe if the artist was just doing it off their own back.
Sure.
So I've seen that with various artists, and it's always grim. I always think about an artist going more commercial. If they do it and they have great success with it, then you can say, okay, well, it's not my bag, but you've done well. Yeah. And you're killing it. But if an artist has a really strong underground following and is making enough to get by and gigging, and then they kind of do the commercial thing that goes wrong, and then it's a disaster.
It's a long way back.
Yeah, there's no way back.
Yeah.
as a label owner, artists that would do that, I'd be very apprehensive taking them back after that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, this has been great. Just to finish, name some good techno parties, in your opinion, these days, wherever you want.
Well, obviously, start at home in London at Fold. And then at Fold. Unfold is good. Tresor, because I still play there a lot.
Of course.
Berlin, RSO in Berlin is good. We've talked about Berghain, but haven't been there for a while. I generally play most of my gigs now outside of Europe. We haven't talked about this, but I play outside of Europe much more than in Europe. So
where?
Asia, South America, USA,
Where's
Canada.
good in Asia? Actually, I'm going there not too distant future.
Headquarters in Singapore.
Okay.
Small little place is good. Got a little bit of sort of Corsica Studios feel to it, though it's 3 or 4 floors up because a lot of the clubs are in the kind of skyscraper things there. Abyss, which is in Shanghai. Pillbox in Beijing. Oil, which is in Oil in Shenzhen in China.
I'm playing there, yeah.
Oil's amazing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect a kind of Berghain style fetish club. There's not the kind of, I guess, sex of Berghain, but there's the outfits, and there's not. I guess they're very careful with nudity. There's the outfits without nudity, but it's got that vibe. They have a cage in the middle, so that's good. And then in South America, like a lot of the parties I play in South America, because I have problems with venues. The venues come and go, but you're playing with the same promoter. But like Under Club in Buenos Aires is amazing. I think that's the best club in the region. Did I mention their Basement New York, Smart Bar Chicago, and then on the West Coast, 6 a.m. The LA club scene is a whole different conversation. It's very bottle service, VIP. So the good parties are the kind of semi-legal warehouse events. So like what 6 a.m. do in LA is amazing. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, co-sign on that.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, listen, it's been great. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Music, not diving, with Scuba.